Welcome to the Business Leaders Legacy Podcast, the show where we go behind the scenes of business leaders to uncover their vision, strategies, and challenges they face along the way. My name is Chris Bruner. I'm the CEO of Simple AI Solutions and the host of today's podcast. I'm excited to have David Chang, the CEO of Kung Fu Kids franchise. Kung Fu Kids franchise is recognized for successfully expanding across high quality martial arts education for children, fostering discipline, confidence, and physical well being through a robust franchise model. David, thank you for being here. Can you please introduce yourself, tell our listeners a little about you, your business, and the communities you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Chris. My name is David Chang, and I'm the founder and CEO of Kung Fu Kids franchise. We're a multi-location martial arts brand that focuses on just working with children. And we started here in the Bay Area of California in San Jose, and we've grown to four very successful company-owned locations. We're about to open our fifth, and we have franchised as well too. So we have franchisees now being able to become their own business owners under our brand and under our system. And for us, it's really about we're focused on helping make sure that our business owners who come into our system, who become our franchisees, have ultimate success. So they have incredible support, that the system is all there. It's done for you, marketing done for you, sales training and development, and the entire processes, the supply chain, everything you need in order to be able to run a really successful Kung Fu Kids locations. That's what we're committed to creating for our franchisees.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's really cool. And I wanted to talk a little bit about you and your role and what you enjoy. What do you enjoy most about leading the growth and development of Kung Fu Kids franchise?
Well, I think that I've gone through several stages of growth in my business. So, at the very, very beginning, I was not looking into going into the martial arts. I was not going into teaching, wasn't looking into becoming a business owner. I was pre-med growing up. In fact, my initials are D.O.C, David Oliver Chang. My parents had sort of subconsciously embedded in me this thought of, hey, you should become a doctor when you grow up. And so I kind of grew up thinking that was what I was going to do. And then along the way, I just really fell in love with one, helping people, and two, teaching martial arts, and three, just loved working with kids. It was just one of those things that brought me a lot of joy. And so at a certain point, I decided to take the big leap and open, our first studio. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no business experience, no business knowledge. Unfortunately, I met my wife, who comes from a family that owns a chain of restaurants. So she really understood the business aspect of it and just really gave me an education. And with us together, with her as my partner, and so now I really consider her the co-founder. We really grew, our first location to over 250 students, and we were, filled to the brim, and ended up moving to a larger facility with about 5,000 square feet, and grew that to over 500 students, and then started expanding to other locations around the Bay Area, and then made the big decision to franchise. So, I guess to go back to your original question, I think initially what really drove me was just the love of teaching and just working with kids. And then at a certain point, just realizing that there's a limit to how many people I can help by myself, right? There's only so many kids I can teach in a day. And in order to have a larger impact and to really help more children, required building a team. And so that was where we started really focusing on me not being the one doing all the teaching and all the selling, but really teaching other people how to do it. And so that's where we brought our team of instructors in, developed them, and really made them incredible at what they do. And now we've been able to replicate that and just really get a lot better and more refined with our training for instructors, so they get to where, what took me 20 years to really understand how to be a good instructor, to get them there within the matter of a couple of months by simply educating and training them on everything. And so initially it was really about just loving the teaching. And now for me, it's giving people the opportunity to get to do what I do for a living, which is just incredibly fun. This is such a fun career. It's incredibly fulfilling. And then to back that up with franchise ownership, which means that you get to be a business owner and you get that freedom of business ownership and all the perks that come with business ownership. That's a real privilege, I feel.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really cool to hear how it just started from just this desire and it just became into something that's growing a ton in your area and now franchising. That's super cool. Super cool to hear. I wanted to know what are some of the biggest changes you're seeing in the industry right now? Anything particularly with the expectations or education trends with the kids as you're coaching and that kind of stuff?
I've really found that children's enrichment programs in general, there's a huge boom in the industry because parents are now finding that what the kids learn in school is important, right? You got to learn how to read, need to know basic math, right? Those things are really fundamental, but they're missing so many other characteristics that they need growing up in order to become successful. Our tagline is we turn children into successful adults. And by that, what we mean is we're going to take all the different skills that your child really needs, characteristics, life skills that they're missing coming out of school, and we're going to fill that gap so that they can actually be really successful in life. Because it's not enough to just be like, I'm good at math, I got straight A's. And, like I know so many people who did incredibly well academically in school, but once they hit the real world, they're just floundering. They're having such a difficult time. They're unhappy. They don't know what they want to do. And then I see other people who, maybe school, whether they were great in it or not, but they developed incredible character skills, right? They learned how to be very confident in themselves, how to have a growth mindset, how to be really, really, really just like have a great sense of perseverance and resilience and positivity in their life. And then they go out into the road and they just do amazing things. And they're outperforming these people who've done incredibly well academically just because they have a personality that draws people to them. They have leadership skills that allow them to grow a team. And so, what we really, really do is develop those skills in children, right?
Yeah.
Because they lack it. Kids come in and they're like they have confidence issues or they're having such a hard time focusing. They're so distracted. They're spending all their time on their iPads or on their computer, playing Minecraft for Roblox or whatever they're doing. And we just help develop these kids to say, like, look, there's so much more that you can do in life. And we help them feel that excitement for challenges and about dreaming big and accomplishing amazing things with their lives.
Yeah, that really is amazing. That is really cool to hear just the impact, right? That it's not, right, it's not just focused on kung fu, right? It's focused on developing these kids, which really seems like the main focus, which is so cool, so impactful. That is really, really neat. I wanted to know on like the business side, are there any like new tools or strategies, maybe with like certain technology or automations or things that you are seeing as you are building this business, especially branching out into now having franchisees in your business?
Yeah, for sure. Technology is moving at such a fast pace. You're not going to have any decent business conversation without mentioning AI, of course, right? And so for us, AI is it's a tool for us to try to optimize the effectiveness of our team, to be able to help them serve our community better, to be more responsive, to be able to do more in a shorter period of time. All those things are really, really important. And so I think that as a whole in industry, and this is probably true for most small businesses, AI is really difficult for a lot of people to adopt. Figuring out like where does this really fit in my company, and how do I make sure that I'm not just doing AI because it's the thing, but it's
Mhm.
actually bringing value to my employees and to the people that we serve. So
Yeah.
we're very conscious about that and understanding that, look, you can't just throw AI at everything. You can't, for example, just do a bot for everything and expect that you're still going to have that very important connection with humans, which is what we're really doing. We're a service
Yeah.
industry. right? We're
Yeah, yeah.
providing for the community and we're building community. And so you can't just say, hey, let's just automate everything and this AI everything. Then you lose that human to human connection, which is so key to us. And that is like, I think as that technology progresses, that's going to be the real struggle where
Mhm.
everyone's going to feel like every time I call AT&T, I just get this robot that I'm talking to, and the robot doesn't understand what I'm really having a struggle with, and it's putting me through these phone menus that aren't working and not getting me to the root of, what I really want to resolve. So I think making sure that we think of AI as a tool, but not as a replacement for what
Mhm.
we do, right? Like AI
Yeah.
should be used to enhance humans and not to replace them.
Yeah, no, that is exactly right. I see the same thing in my industry, as the CEO of Simple AI Solutions, an AI automation agency where it is best used when you still keep that human connection, right? But use it to help help optimize business processes, right? It can't be the whole solution, but it fits in to help businesses, a wide variety, almost every business, right? It is very, but it's very, very interesting. You definitely hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah.
So
I think a good example of how we use it is if I want to write up a process, maybe something came up and I was like, you know what, we really need an SOP for this. So this is a kind of situation where, okay, I might take 2 hours to really type up this entire SOP, or I can voice chat into, say, an AI like ChatGPT and explain what the SOP is verbally, right? And that takes me maybe 3 or 4 minutes to explain, and then say, now write this up into an SOP, right? And then it comes back, spits it back out, and then it goes through a few rounds of revision, right? Oh, wait, make
yeah,
sure you include this. Oh, don't say that because that doesn't match our culture, whatever it is, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
like it just takes that time that maybe would have been a 3 hour project and reduces it down to 30 minutes, with the assistant. So that I think is a really good example of how we like to use AI to take what would be normally a very long project and then to really accelerate the how quickly we can get that output.
Yeah, no, that is cool. That is definitely a great way to use AI. And there's so many different tools coming out nowadays, so many different things. It really is hard for small to mid-sized businesses to leverage it, right? Because it is hard. It's not like how, right? It's not like a lot of businesses can invest like millions of dollars like these bigger businesses are doing with AI, and figuring out how to do that actually makes sense, right? Because
Mhm.
if it doesn't actually move the needle in what that business is trying to accomplish to, increase revenue or increase efficiency or whatever it is, then it doesn't make sense. It's not worth it, right? And so that's yeah, that's definitely interesting. I did want to talk about what are some things that are going really well within your business right now?
Man, well, I would say first and foremost is that we've just got really great people on the team. Obviously, you know, myself and my wife and my son now, joining the company as our CMO, like we've got a really great, strong executive team that is very focused and extremely hardworking. And we're really very, very highly determined to make this a success and to really serve the community well. And then everything where like we just got this amazing team of people who love the work that they do, are extremely passionate about it, are, obviously, are well compensated, but aren't in it just for the money.
Yeah,
That they are really here because they make a difference in people's lives. And you see it in their daily actions. You see
yeah,
it in their reporting and how they're really talking about, when they report, they talk about how the different team members, how they're helping other team members elevate their leadership skills, and how they're really working with specific students to give them a great experience, and sometimes going above and beyond, oftentimes going above and beyond to make sure that that student had a really positive experience and really got what they needed out of the program. So
yeah.
I would say the number one thing for us is just going to be we have just fantastic people here all across the board, from our very newest instructors all the way up to to our executives. They're great. And then the second thing I would say is that you know Pretty much from the start, our company has had a really strong financial model. I mean, we outperform typical martial arts academies. Our average unit will do on average 1 million a year in revenue. So that's a strong business model, and that's why we're so confident in it as a franchise, right? Because you can go in at a relatively low cost. It's not expensive to build. It's not like building a restaurant franchise where you're going to put in between at a minimum 500,000, and for typically for restaurants you're looking at maybe 1 million or 1.5 million to build out a restaurant,
Mm.
and you can build one of ours out for around 300,000 dollars. And so like that's a really nice price point to be able to come in and be like, hey, I can build this for relatively low cost, and it generates great revenue with very high profit margins. And like I said before, it's really fun to do, like it's just fun. You get to
Yeah.
work with kids all day long. And even if you, as an owner, like if you're a franchise owner, you can come into this and not have any martial arts experience because you're going to hire the people to do it, right? So you need to be a good CEO, you need to be a good leader, but you don't have to come in with martial arts experience. But you do have to come in with just the desire to be in this industry, to be able to help children, be able to work with them. Because I think it's so important that you have to have the passion for what you do. Because in any business, whether you're coming in, starting it of your own, or you're coming in a franchise, there are going to be hiccups. There are going to be challenges you run into. And that passion for the lives that you're changing has to be strong enough to override the frustrations that you may encounter. And so I don't want any business owner to come in thinking like it's all going to be smooth riding because it's a franchise. Like no, like you're going to run into some challenges.
Mm.
It's not going to be all smooth. But you've got the passion that it's going to push you through, and then B, you have us as your mentors, as your support system. So you pick up the phone or send us a text message or give us a call and just hey, I'm running into this issue, and we will guide you through. This is what you should do in order to get through this. And so just that's what we're really excited about.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, that's really cool. Having the right team is so important. It's such like a crucial part that I think is really it's undermined in very often nowadays, right? Often people think like let's just throw more money at it or throw technology at it or this or that, but having the right team makes so much of a difference.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool to hear. Every business faces hurdles. And so I was wondering, would you be willing to share maybe a challenge that you guys have faced and how you overcame that challenge?
Yeah, well, here's one I think everyone can relate to who's running a business. 2020 is when, COVID-19 hit, right? Gyms, any sort of fitness related business was hit very hard. And I know many of them that closed their doors down for good. I mean, it was really difficult, especially us. We're in California,
Hmm.
and we maybe had the strictest, restrictions of almost any state probably. So, I mean, those were tough times. Now, I'm very proud to say that throughout this entire process, we didn't have to let any employees go. Obviously they worked fewer hours, right? Because there just wasn't as much, but like we kept everyone on board. And we really pivoted very hard. There's a saying in the martial arts, the harder you pivot, the harder you punch, right?
Hmm.
And so for us, it was getting ahead of the curve. And so just to kind of take it back a few steps here, roughly about January of 2020, COVID really hit, shutdown started happening in March. So January of 2020, I started getting news of, hey, there's this thing going on in China. It's starting to potentially spread, across the world. This could really lead to a potential shutdown. And so we started very early on developing the what if plan. What if things shut down? What are we going to do? And so we started preparing for the possibility of we might need to take our classes online, right? this might be a true possibility. Most martial arts schools and gyms in general got blindsided. They had no idea this was coming. It just happened. All of a sudden, the government said, shut your doors. You can't have people inside your building anymore. But we had been preparing for this for about 2 months before it even hit. So we started really thinking about, all right, how do we create an online program that will keep kids engaged, that will make it so parents don't cancel their memberships, and the only way to do that is to be incredibly entertaining, very, very engaging through the screen, and to also have a great sales system so we continue to generate new students. So what it looked like for us is we took a moment to study like what are the TV shows that keep kids really engaged? And I came back to Blue's Clues because when my children were growing up, they loved Blue's Clues. And so I told my instructors, everyone needs to watch an episode of Blue's Clues. I want you to see how the people, the hosts, the characters are interacting with the kids in the screen. And what they do is they talk directly to the camera like they're talking to the kids. And they do physical things too. So what we actually did is we would have classes in on Zoom and we would look out on those group of students and we would see what they were doing and then we would interact with them. We would say, Chris, that's an amazing snap kick. I love that. Give me a high five. And we would do this to the screen. And we'd have kids literally run up to the TVs and slap the screen where we had the hand for them to high five. And so it was just figuring out like how do we create a wonderful experience that maybe it's not as great as being in person. It's really hard to beat that experience, but how can we make it still like pretty darn good and better than anybody else's? And so we really didn't lose that many students. You know, we lost about a third, but that's better than losing 100% of your
Mm-hmm.
students.
Yeah.
Lost about a third, and we kept things going. And then we developed a whole sales process where we were like, this is before people really started using Facebook ads. We're like, look, we need to get in front of people and get them to consider joining our online program. And the only way to do that is to do it through something like Facebook because it's not gonna work through Google ads because
Mm-hmm.
nobody is going into Google at this time with the shutdown and going looking for martial arts classes. It's just not a
Mm-hmm.
concept for them. So we have to throw the ad in front of them while they're scrolling down their page, looking at their friends and looking at cats, right? And so they would see an ad that says, you know, online martial arts class, and we have like a great starter deal for them. So they would feel like, hey, this is a very low, you know, investment to go ahead and just try this out. And then so we would meet with the kids and the parents on Zoom, and we would do a virtual martial arts lesson with them. And it was very similar to the one that we did in person, but we just adapted it to being through a screen. And by the end of that, the parents are watching, they're like, my kid is really having fun, right? And the kid is having a blast. And then we just talk to the parent, and then we, you know, we present, you know, the membership and how it all works. And then we would physically end up, we would put a uniform in a box and we would mail it to them. So they would the next, you know, in a couple of days, we'd priority mail ship it. So in a couple of days, they'd open it and they have a uniform and they wear it in the class. They have the belt. Every time we did a belt promotion, which again we would be doing virtually, we would mail them a certificate and a belt for their promotion. And so we just really thought about this, like my whole approach to teaching an online class was not, oh, we got to teach online because there's nothing better, you know, we got to stay in business and this sucks, right? For me, I thought, let's imagine that COVID never goes away, that this is now the permanent way of society. There will never be an in-person martial arts class ever again. How do we build this so that this could be the forever business? And so that's what we really did is, okay, let's structure this in the way that if we needed to run this for the next 30 years, we would run it for the next 30 years just like this. And it worked. And eventually we got to the point where it's like, okay, like in person is back, you know, and we slowly tapered off the online until, you know, probably not until 2 years ago did we finally say, you know what, it's time to shut it down, you know, completely because we're so much in person now. But like we kept running in person and virtual for, you know, simultaneously for a really long time. And what's amazing is we were having students, paying students in our program virtually from around the globe, right? Like I had a kid in Hong Kong, I had kids on the East Coast, and they were doing online classes with us. So it took us from a very local brand actually into a global brand, which was
Yeah.
what a surprise. And so one of my philosophies is you should never ever waste a good crisis. right? When things like this happen, every time I've had a situation where we've had that we've been very challenged, it's a struggle. And your mind, you're like, oh my God, this is the end. This is my business is gonna die. Every time that ever happens, when we push through that, which we always do because you have no choice, right? But when we just get over that sadness and fear and grief and past that period of mourning and be like, look, let's work on this. Let's figure this out. We've ended up bigger and stronger than ever before. Every single period of disaster, every single period of crisis has ended up with us being bigger. And I mean, you know, from a knowledge standpoint and a resilience and a wisdom standpoint, like we're actually better, and from a revenue and profit standpoint, right? Both,
Yeah.
And so like 2020 was really hard for a lot of schools, but one of the things it did for us is because so many martial arts schools and gyms closed, it actually created a market void, which
Mm.
we then were able to take advantage of. So that's why starting in 2020, we started actually expanding because now there were all these communities where their beloved martial arts schools had closed down, and there was a dearth in supply. And we said we can fill that void right now because we're in a position to be able to do it. We're financially strong. We've got a team that's incredible. We got a system that is replicable. So now we can start growing, at this opportunity.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool to hear that you had growth in one of the most difficult seasons in business that any of us have faced in our lifetime, and you had significant growth, which is so cool. Super cool to hear that. Congrats. That's awesome. That's awesome. Really cool to hear. I wanted to see like where you're headed with Kung Fu Kids. What does the next like 6 months to a year look like? What goals are you trying to achieve? Is it more growth? Is it what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I would definitely say we're very growth focused right now. We have really our franchise. You can think of it as a business in a box, right? Like if you become one of our franchisees, we're gonna hold your hand and guide you through every step. And like the system is so airtight. Like we have an entire marketing system that's already built out that we will deploy for you. Like you literally don't have to even do the marketing. Like in our franchise, like we will actually do it for you. And then you follow our sales system. And then you follow the curriculum. Like every single class you have to teach, there's a minute by minute lesson plan. You just follow the plan. You learn how to execute it. You do the trainings with us. We also have videos on everything as well too, so you can always refer to it. Like we just make it so easy, right? And so for us, since we now have this replicable system, we just need people who want to execute it. And that's what a wonderful opportunity for people to get to be business owners, right? To be able to be like, I get to be my own boss now. I get to have the flexibility. I get to have the unlimited financial growth, because you know that if you're working for someone that you're like, there's a certain point where like you're going to make up to a certain amount and it doesn't really get more than that. But what's that next step is, yeah, to become the owner. And so we really want to get this out over the next 12 months. We'd love to grow to, at least 10 or 12 more franchise locations, and then to really look at, can we double that year after year over the next decade. We would love to become the next major kids activity franchise brand, across the nation. I think we have what it takes, because I think the system is so good. The financials are there. The numbers are really, really solid in this business, the way we've done it. And it's very easy to run, which I think is really key in any sort of franchise business. So, I think we've got it. Now we just really have to get the word out there to people. And I think that once people start seeing it more and more, they're going to be like, how do I get one of these for myself?
Yeah.
It looks really fun to do. It clearly, there's so many kids here. Obviously, it's making a lot of money. Like, how do I get into this business? And, that's where we're going to be able to start growing, hopefully exponentially.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That's really cool. It really is cool to hear that the potential is there for so much growth to make this a huge impact and really to think about like the kids like it's more than just kung fu, right? It's developing kids in a way that teaches them, that sets them up for life. And especially just childhood is such a important stage in a person's life that it's like so moldable. It's so crucial, right? That upbringing. So learning in that moment with something fun like this is so cool, super cool to hear. So that's exciting. That's exciting. When you think about scaling like that, what is your strategy, or where are you guys heading to try to get more franchisees?
So there's a number, I think, so I've always thought as marketing as a little bit of you want to have multiple pillars of marketing. You don't want to just do one thing and be like, I'm going to hang all
Mhm,
my budget on this one thing because that thing could disappear.
mhm,
Some people who know this because they may have had their entire business hinging on Facebook ads. And then at some point, Apple changed, privacy, restrictions on iOS, and then all of a sudden their Facebook ads really struggled, their business struggled. So you don't want to just do one thing. I think for us, we have the Facebook ads, we have the organic, we have a lot of marketing within our own locations. So we want to make sure that every parent who has their child here at least hears and understands that this is a franchise, that if they're looking to do something new and different in their life that's going to be really fun and get to be their own boss, hey, this is an opportunity that you could take on. And by the way, it's okay that you don't know Kung Fu. You don't need to know Kung Fu as the owner, right? Um, I think so. A lot of that word of mouth. We're looking at, potentially going to do some franchise expos where, you have a booth there and people who are interested in exploring the franchise world come and get to learn about your concept. You get to talk to them and just meet a lot of really wonderful people. That's another big thing that we want to do. And working with potentially some franchise brokers or, sales organizations to really help connect us with potential franchisees who this would be a great fit for.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exciting. That's really cool. That's an exciting place to be. The
Yeah, for
potential
sure.
is there, and yeah, that's really
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, we brought my son in as our CMO for the company because there's so many moving parts now. And, I mean, our company has gotten bigger and bigger every single year. And it's got to the point where it's like, you know what? Like I really need to make sure that we are spending the time and effort and the funds necessary to market this well, but I am running out of bandwidth, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we really decided is, look, my son, who has a degree in business economics, he's going to be focusing on the marketing. That's going to be his baby. And then I'm going to be focusing on a lot of the customer facing or franchisee facing, operations, like making sure that they're getting the training, getting make sure they're getting the support. I'll be most of the connecting with, with people who are qualified leads and, really bringing them through that process of awarding them a franchise. But like, I need somebody who's going to really be the master of making sure you execute all the different pillars of marketing necessary for that this franchise is going to really need to take off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. And that's cool. That is super cool. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yes, yeah, I mean we are too. I mean, we want to be like the next Orange Theory.
Yeah.
Kung Fu kids all around. The nation around the globe. Like I tell people, look, this is our goal, right? I tell our franchisees this. Our goal is to become so well known that we're sort of a ubiquitous term. Where how people would say like, okay, we say like, oh, what do your kids do? And they'll be like, oh yeah, like I send my kids to Kumon, and everyone just knows what it is. Like you don't have to be like, oh, what it is. This is a tutoring thing, like you just use it as as a common noun. Like we want Kung Fu kids to be that common noun, right? People say, oh, I send my kids to Kumon, and they do Kung Fu kids. Like that you don't have to explain what it is, or like it's just it's just a term. One of the major and most popular children's activities out there. That's where we want to be.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And it seems like you guys are on your way to be there.
Yes, sir.
So
We're
cool.
working on
Well,
it.
Well, thank you so much, David. I've really appreciated the conversation today. I think our listeners will have an awesome time listening. It was really cool to hear just what you guys are about, what you guys are doing, and the impact you're making. And so it's really cool. Um, to where, before we go, can you share where our listeners can find more out about Kung Fu Kids and the franchise?
Yeah, so if you're interested in looking into classes for a child, you go to kungfu.kids. It's a pretty cool URL name, by the way. It's actually exactly this how it's kungfu.kids. And that'll take you to our website for classes. If you're interested in business ownership and doing something that's going to really help children in your community, then you go to kungfukidsfranchise.com, and that'll give you information about our franchise, give you some details. If you want to move forward with it and very interested, just fill in your information on the form on the website, and then we'll get in touch and start having that conversation of if this is going to be a good fit for you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, to close, I'd like to ask one last question. Since this is the Business Leaders Legacy podcast, and you, as a business leader, the CEO of Kung Fu Kids, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Making sure that children across the world are better because we were part of their life. You know, one of my favorite stories, and I'll keep this short, but one of my favorite stories is we have this one child who I remember joining our academy when he was 7 years old. His name is Samrit. He doesn't mind me sharing the story. When he first joined, he was so scared. Like he was incredibly anxious. He was crying his first few days of classes. And not only that, physically, he was also fairly underdeveloped for his age. Like he had low muscle tone, very poor coordination. And we just really worked with this kid, and we worked with this kid, and just he got better every single year. He got better and better and better and better. And eventually he earned his black belt. And it was such an amazing accomplishment for him because again, he started, when he began, he was struggling so much. And a couple years after that he earned his black belt, he asked me, hey, Sifu Chang, would it be okay? I'd like to join the leadership program so I can learn how to become an instructor here. So we have a leadership program which is designed to teach youth how to become amazing leaders and teach them responsibility and how to coach. And so he joined the program. He's an amazing student, extremely diligent, never missed a class. And he just got really good. And after a year, I said, Samrit, you're doing so amazing. I want to hire you as an instructor. And so that was his part-time job in high school. He was an instructor with us. And he was awesome because he would look out on this group of students out there, and he would find that one kid who was feeling really scared. He would go right to that kid because that was him when he was young. So we really empathized. A couple years after that, he was applying for college. He asked me to write his letter of recommendation. I wrote him a really strong letter. He got into Dartmouth. So this scared little 7-year-old boy went Ivy League, and now he's in the workforce. He's doing amazing things. He's very, very, very successful, and I'm so proud of that. And so we just know that what we do for the children, it changes their lives. It just puts them on a completely different trajectory where they have confidence, where they have a positive mindset, where they see challenges and they just go for it, and they don't think that they have limitations. They believe that they can achieve anything they want to. That's what we really want for our kids to believe in and come out with our program with that mindset. And we've done that for Samrit. We've done that for hundreds of kids. And so we want to do this for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids, like we don't want to just do this for like our little community here in San Jose. Like we want to get this out across the world because so many kids need this. And so if I can at the end of my life look back and say we changed so many lives, like I will feel like I had lived a worthwhile life.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is really cool to hear. Really cool to hear the full circle with that example of that kid. That's super cool. Well, thank you again for sharing. I appreciate it. Our listeners appreciate it. Again, thank you all for tuning in. This is the Business Leaders Legacy Podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you again, David.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.